Alrighty guys, today is the day that we get UglyTruck out on the road and do the very first test drive with our brand new rebuilt transmission. Or at least that's how I was planning on starting the video today, but I took a quick test drive yesterday and I found something that's gonna completely change what I had planned on doing today. So instead of doing a test drive, I'm actually going to be removing the transmission. Now, you guys watched me rebuild this trans over the last couple of videos, and in the test drive yesterday, everything actually seemed to shift good. It's pretty crisp, it goes into the gears like it should, no major delays or anything weird like that. But as I was pulling the truck into the shop yesterday, I decided I wanted to just kind of test the stall converter, because that's another thing that one of the main reasons why I did this whole thing was to install a higher stall speed torque converter so I could spool the turbo up a little bit quicker. So anyway, put my foot on the brake and I put my foot on the gas just a little bit, and when I did, I heard a noise that is definitely not normal and definitely not something that I wanted to hear coming from this transmission. And I'll put a little video clip in right here so you can kind of maybe tell what I'm talking about. It may be a little bit hard to tell from the video because I just recorded it on my cell phone. It doesn't have the best audio in the world, but there's a slight whirring sound. It kind of sounds like a bad power steering pump. And then whenever the RPMs reach about 15 or 1600 RPM, maybe somewhere around 17, it starts to make a little bit louder, like hissing sound. Now, I'm no transmission expert, but I do know that whenever you have your foot on the brake and the transmission in gear, nothing inside the transmission is moving, save for the pump and, of course, the torque converter, which is outside the transmission. So the noise, from what I can tell, from my assumption, is that it's not coming from inside the transmission. And because of how the truck drove yesterday and how it shifted, I feel like all the clutches, the gears, and all that hydraulic stuff on the inside, I think, is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So my hunch is that maybe there's something inside the torque converter that is causing this noise. It seems to drive fine, it's just a noise that I am pretty sure should not be there. And if it's not the torque converter, it's probably something in the pump. But I went back and I double checked the footage that I recorded while I assembled the pump, and there's two different ways you can put the pump gear in, and I'm pretty sure, in fact, I'm positive I have the pump gear in the right direction. So I don't think it's the pump. This is my hunch. I have no idea if I'm right or I'm wrong. I'm not trash talking anybody or anything like that, but a good way to rule out a problem is to replace a part with a known good one. So today's plan, I'm going to take the transmission out. I am going to quickly swap in my original torque converter. It still worked fine. I just didn't have a high enough stall speed, and we'll put the whole thing back together, fill it up with fluid again, and see how it works. And if the noise has gone away, then I know where the problem lies. Not a huge deal. I kind of already talked to those guys, and they're going to be able to help me out and get things taken care of. So anyway, yeah, we're going to take the transmission out. I'm actually not going to show you guys those steps on video, simply because I just showed it to you, and it's a whole lot quicker if I can just work without filming and get the transmission out. And oh, by the way, yes, my voice does sound completely messed up because I've had a weird head cold for the last week. But anyway, no time to rest. Let's get this transmission out, and I'll catch up with you guys in just a moment. Alrighty, so it is just after lunchtime. I went and met the wife. We got a little bit to eat, and we got the transmission out this morning, and it only took me about an hour and a half, so it was really not that bad of a job. As much as I thought about it last night, just dreading, like, man, I got to take this thing apart again. You know what? Not a big deal. Hour and a half, we got the thing slammed out. I actually took a few shortcuts this time that made life a little bit easier. Number one, I left from the downpipe all the way back. I left the exhaust in the truck. Last time I removed it because I thought it would give me more space to work, which it does, but even though it is 4-inch exhaust, it's not really that much of a pain in the butt to just leave it in place. So anyway, exhaust I put in, and then also on top of the engine here, it's much easier to reach your arm right down through that hole to get the top two bolts on the top center and the one on the passenger side. Before, I had to struggle with like a really long extension and like a wobbly socket up above the transmission. That was a complete pain in the butt. In fact, that's actually why I removed the exhaust, so I had room to do that. But with the engine tipped down just a little bit and with the fender well out, I can easily access The bolt's kind of on the side. You know, picture doing a downpipe on Duramax. It's the same exact thing. There's plenty of space in between the firewall and the back of the block. So anyway, we got the old torque converter out. We got the new one kind of ready to, or new old original one ready to go back in. I know this one ran quiet. Once again, guys, this is just purely on a hunch. I actually did send the video to the guys over at Circle D, and they got back to me just like literally before I started taping this bit, and they said they thought perhaps it was a bearing noise inside the torque converter, and they were more than happy to take care of it. So we'll see what happens when I get this one put back in. It's a hunch. Maybe we're right, maybe we're not. I don't know. I'm not a transmission expert, guys. I can take Legos apart and put them back together, but that doesn't mean I can tell you how they work. So anyway, yeah, let's carry on, and I'll catch up with you in a little bit. All right, guys, it's the next morning. I have the truck put back together. We wrapped things up last night, so we've got the original torque converter in there. The new torque converter is right there, just kind of sitting for now. And I did the same exact test last night where I put my foot on the brake, foot on the gas, bring up the RPMs a little bit. And I was paying attention to the noise, and I'll put the video clip in right here so you guys can take a listen. So if I'm being perfectly honest, there's a pretty good chance that this was all just a colossal waste of time. To me, from what I can hear on the video and from what I can hear just in person, the noise is definitely quieter. It definitely changed like the pitch of it, but the noise is still there, which means either one of two things. Number one, there's something wrong inside the transmission, or number two, there's a chance it might be normal. So I was thinking to myself, like, what do I have to compare against? Like, do I know anybody with a 4L80 I can call up and say, hey, take a recording and let me know what you think? And then it occurred to me that I actually have another big block 4L80 truck just sitting right outside. I got my Suburban. So I went out last night, I started it up, did the same test, put it in gear, put my foot on the gas, bring up the RPM. And once you know it, it seems to have a similar sort of sound whenever the RPMs hit about 1500. I don't know if that's because line pressure is starting to ramp up. I don't know what's going on, but same transmission, similar noise. I'm kind of thinking maybe that this is totally normal. So when I emailed Circle D kind of before I went through this whole thing of pulling out the converter, I sent them the video, and they're like, well, it might be a bearing inside the torque converter. We don't know. And they said they'd be happy to check it out. I'm actually thinking there's a fair chance it's not. But since I went through the effort, I think I'm going to send the torque converter in anyway. And I don't know what they do, whether they take it apart, clean it out, or what happens, but they're going to give it a check over for me. And at this point, I think it'll just be peace of mind. Like I said, I have a hunch now that it's just a normal noise. And the reason why I went through this effort is, well, whenever I put something together for the very first time, I guess I'm like hypersensitive to any sort of noises. Like when I was driving this before, I never would have paid attention to it because number one, the truck, I've never like spooled it up inside a building like this. And you know, whenever the walls are right here, you can definitely hear noises a lot clearer than when you're just like, say, on the starting line of a drag strip. So there's a fair chance this noise was happening all along. And I'm probably just crazy. Just come out and say it. That's probably all it is. But anyway, the truck's put back together. I am going to send the converter off just to get it cleaned and checked out or whatever. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start driving the truck, put a bunch of miles on it, because remember, this is a completely brand new transmission, and not that there's any sort of like break-in period that you have to do, but I just want to put some use on it, get, 100, 200 miles on it before I, go nuts with it and go wide open throttle. Well, we'll probably do a little bit of wide open pulse here in just a second, but there's a lot of stuff we changed inside the transmission as well. It's got all new bearings, bushings, seals, clutches, steels, frictions, whatever. So anyway, I'm probably an idiot, but let's go for a test drive and see. All right, so this isn't like an official first test drive because throughout this whole process, I've actually taken it on a lot of short little drives, but I have exactly 10.8 miles on this transmission, including both converter swaps that I've done. So I guess the question is, number one, how does it drive? Seems to drive exactly like it should, just cruising like this. I don't notice any sort of strange noises or anything that you wouldn't want to hear, so that's a plus. I know some people had some concerns when using some of the transgo parts that your shifts would be not firm enough. Definitely we don't have that problem. The shifts, you can definitely tell when they're happening. I wouldn't say it's harsh. It's maybe borderline. Like if you're driving this truck every single day in traffic and stop and go nonstop, you might not love those shifts like all the way firm like that. So when we drilled the separator plate, if this was a more cruiser type truck, we could have gone with a little bit smaller size. And also in the valve body, there was a couple of different spring options with the transgo kit, and I went pretty much the firmest on everything. It's not unbearable, it's firm. And also when we put the looser converter back in, that's definitely going to soften up a little bit of that, because the converter's kind of like, I don't know, it's like kind of like a sponge almost. It just soaks up some of those shifts. But with the stock converter in, this is technically not a stock converter, it's actually a slightly higher stall speed. Yeah, it's firm, not unbearable. So far I'm going to call it a win. All right, so I got a good straight stretch of road here. I'm not going to go full throttle, but I'm definitely going to like get into it a little bit more than I was before. So just kind of curious how it shifts with, say, like half or 3/4 throttle. We'll find out. Definitely can tell it shifts. Yeah, I like it. I really like it so far. When it does that 1-2, I let off before the 2-3 got crazy, but the 1-2 definitely is right there. It spun a little bit, and like I said, it's really cold outside, but yeah, no question at all when this thing shifts. So I feel like I'm happy. I feel like the transmission is doing what it should. The whole noise thing, I don't know. Definitely gonna put some miles on this thing just to kind of run it through its paces. As soon as I get the converter back, gonna put it in right away. And then, because that was like the main thing I was looking forward to, is seeing how this thing spools up with that new converter. But honestly, with the roads being as cold as they are right now, probably would have been a little dangerous anyway, but that's all right. Yeah. I gotta say thank you guys for watching. Thank you for hanging in there too, because I know this process was kind of dragged out by the time I pulled the trans out, rebuilt it, put it back in, then messing around with this converter thing. The way I see it, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'd rather take the time to pull something apart a second time rather than just, sending it and then letting something get destroyed. That's not the way I wanted this to go. So I'm like 85% confident right now in the transmission rebuild. Right now we're up to 17.6 miles, so we'll take it one day at a time, but thank you for watching. Not sure what we'll do next time, but subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the like button, drop a comment, and tell me how crazy I am, because I'm curious to see what you guys think. Anyway, thank you for watching. Catch you next time. So I don't think that there's any like official braking procedure that you necessarily have to do on an automatic transmission, but I don't know, 25 miles, that's probably enough to do a little bit of a almost full throttle pull, right? Let's give it a shot. Definitely shifts. It's definitely firm. Maybe borderline harsh, but stock converter, when we swap that out, the looser converter will definitely soften up some of those like really, really firm shifts. So look. Probably should have not done that. With overdrive on. Probably wiped out my sprag already. So the other thing worth mentioning, which isn't a huge deal at all, that exhaust leak is gone. You guys remember I pulled the manifold off and resealed that. So just one less thing to worry about. Yeah, it shifts. Definitely does not lack any firmness or pressure on the shifts.